This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. This is the place where you meet first-time authors who share their stories and their process. What inspired them to write their stories, how long it took them to finally get the job done, how they found a publisher, and how they went about promoting their stories. These authors are proof. If you want to write bad enough, you will find a way. On the line, we have Roxy Thompson. She wrote, "Sometimes We Sit on Our Blisters." That is a great title, Roxy. Where'd you come up with that one?
Title of the book. Okay. Mom always told us three girls that she would never sign for us to get married, that we would have to wait until we were old enough to get married without her signature. Then we couldn't come back and blame her if our marriage went wrong. And she always said, if we got married, everything went wrong, we would just have to sit on our blister. Back then, it was 21 for a girl to get married, back in the 30s and 40s. And so my sisters, both of them were over 22 when they got married. I was 20. So when me and my would-be husband went to the courthouse to get her marriage license and asked me my age, I lied and said I was 21. But I weren't. I was 20. So when I got back home and showed Mom my marriage certificate, she said, if you got burned, you'll just have to sit on your blister.
I love that title.
Okay.
So what's the book about?
It's about me, my life, the way I grew up in the 30s and 40s. I originally wrote the book for my children to give them a little insight into the way I grew up in the 30s and 40s on an 80-acre farm in comparison to the way they live today, with all these modern conveniences right at their fingertips.
Did you have no modern conveniences? Did you have a bathroom?
No, we did not. We did not have running water. We had a spring. We did not have a telephone. We did not have electricity. We used kerosene oil lamps.
Where was this farm?
It's in Sugar Grove, Virginia. It's about 10 miles from where I live now. I was born in North Baltimore, Ohio, but I grew up here in Southwest Virginia with no modern conveniences.
When did you leave the farm?
When I got married when I was 20. I've not lived on a farm since. But I have over the years. I've had a big vegetable garden and did a lot of canning and freezing food.
So you want your kids to know what it was like to live with no conveniences, no TV, no running water, no bathroom, no nothing, and farming the land.
No cell phone, no computer.
Do you think that was a good way to grow up?
Well, we were happy. As you say, we didn't have any of the problems the young people have today.
Yeah, you didn't have the problems of taking pictures of yourself and sending it out immediately.
Oh, no. We were lucky to get a school picture taken once a year.
Does your book just draw comparisons between then and now?
It goes on till some events that happened after I got married. Part of it is as I grew up, part of it as I got married. But I'm 84 years old. I'm legally blind, and I wrote the book by the use of a magnifying machine that the Association for the Blind gave me.
That's wonderful.
I could only use a machine about 10 minutes at a time. It has a small screen, like a TV screen, but whenever I try to write or read about 10 minutes at a time by the movement of the material on the screen, I start getting dizzy. So I could only use it about 10 minutes at a time and wait a while and then go back.
Boy, you must have wanted to write this really bad.
Well, it was one cold, snowy winter when I couldn't get out and do anything else. I needed something to occupy my mind.
That's great. I mean, that's somebody who wants to get something done.
Yeah, I've always been that way. I've always been creative.
So it must feel really good to have this book published, knowing what you went through to get it done.
Yes. Since 1985, I have wrote 5 books. This is the 5th one. In my spare time that I have, I would help my sister do research on our family history.
So one of your other books is on your family history?
It is one that me and my sister both put together.
Did you self-publish those books as well?
No, we haven't published those books, no.
Well, get on it.
Yeah, I would love to have my other 4 books published if I live long enough that my finances will allow me to do so. But being 84, my body tells me I'm old, but my mind tries to tell me I'm not. It disagrees.
Good. Good for you. It should disagree. You keep going, all right?
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you again soon. Man, she had to use a magnifying machine to write her book. That is determination. You think you have obstacles? Think about Roxy. Let's go out to Tom Calloway in Wichita, Kansas.
I said, don't you dare laugh. I know everybody says you live in the weeds and live in the twigs.
I
weeds
did.
and, this is a nice town, okay?
I didn't say anything.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Tim. Knock yourself out. This is your interview, baby. What's the name of your book?
The name of my book is called Sun Star Poems.
Yeah, and it's capitalized, right? Son?
Yes, right.
Why
Right.
is that?
Because it designates Jesus Christ, who's the Son of God.
I should have known that.
They are primarily praising Christ, who is the Redeemer of mankind, because mankind couldn't get it right, so God had to send somebody that would get it right. And that's really what it amounts to. And by his 33 and a half years, he got it right. God, in his infinite wisdom, knows we can't do it right. But even though he loves all his creatures, he still wants us to come back to him. In his mind's eye, there has to be a sacrifice. And he knew that humans couldn't do it because we are all subject to sin. So he said, well, the only way to do it is take part of me, which is his son, and go down and show him how it's done. And to me, I'm writing a poem now called Absolute God that I want to publish later. And it talks about what it would be like to never know sin, but to have sin put in your body, which I think is just has to be phenomenal, to never know this, ever. So far, it's 12 pages long, so I just can't stop writing. So I don't know how it'll end up, but
That's a 12-page poem?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
It'll
a long
probably be
poem.
Yeah, because it goes back from the very beginning when God first created man, and about how he really, it was something phenomenal because the angels are made of fire, and humans are made of dust. And this is why there was a little envy from the angelic world that why would you make somebody out of dust when we're made of fire, But God just said to prove that he could do anything, But we will eventually judge angels. Isn't that interesting?
We will judge angels.
Yes, we will judge angels. Angels that have fallen will be judged by humans. Yeah, that is in the Bible, by the way.
Did you feel the need to do this?
When I was 17, the first poem I wrote was called La Mer, which means the sea, by Claude Debussy, the composer. You probably heard of him, right? Anyway,
Right.
When I was about 17 years old, my father introduced me to classical music, and this inspired me to write the poem called La Mer. I wrote it when I was 17, but I lost it. So I rewrote it, probably 5-6 years ago, and I changed some things in it because I saw things differently as an adult versus somebody who's 17. And it's amazing how much it changed. Not a lot, but it did change some, This is how I get inspired sometimes. It's just sometimes it's music, sometimes it's a tragedy, sometimes it's something that personally happens, sometimes it's love for my country, having been overseas and spent time in Southeast Asia, my wife is from Cambodia, and we went to the killing fields. That was one of the places I wanted to go. And that inspired me to write another poem, which I will finish after I've done this other one I'm doing, about the suffering those people went through because somebody had an ideology that was so crazy, What happened was I got really inspired about 3 years ago. I have so much that I've written. Hundreds of pages. And I tried to categorize them in such a way that what it depicts for a book for that particular time, And that's why the ones that's in this particular book, I felt like this was adequate for this book. Having been retired, I can really focus now. Because, before that you were in Stress City with Boeing, I was responsible for what they call struts in the sails, where we built the part that holds the engine on the plane, which is the most important part of the plane. No engine, no fly, And it's so stressful. So now that I don't have that, I'm really much free to create now, like I've always wanted to do. And, who knows what would have happened if I never done it? I don't know.
Did you write any poems about Bowen?
No.
All right. So now you've got your book in your hand, and how you getting the word out?
Through my son. He's got it on Facebook and Twitter now. He's got over 700 invitations right now.
Nice.
So that was amazing. Yeah. Just really amazing. And then people at the place where my wife works are getting the word out. And then I have a sister-in-law in Seattle, Washington that's doing really good. She's supposed to be touching base back with me. And we're just trying to do it from different people that I know that have access, because I'm not really a computer skills guy. We're getting it out. And then I've also got a appointment with, it's called, you ever heard of 8 Day Books?
Yes.
Okay, 8 Day Books is supposed to be getting back with me so I can have a book signing, We're getting there. I think it's a process that takes a little time, but it's going to get there.
Yes.
Really
keep the faith, Tim.
I am. I'm going to.
I mean, if anybody's going to keep the faith, it's going to be you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Tim. Our next author is standing by. Connie Lee wrote Love on the Brain. Connie is not your real name, right? But why don't you want to use your real name?
I don't want people to know I wrote this unless it goes over good.
Why? What's wrong?
They might not agree with some parts of the book, so I just don't. I'm playing it cool.
Well, what wouldn't people agree with?
They wouldn't agree with some of the sexy parts.
Oh, like what?
It's a sexy part about a young girl and a young boy.
And your friends might not approve? Or do they have sex before they get married?
No, they're not married. They didn't get married, those two.
Oh, okay. Is it wild, crazy sex?
Well, it's some kind of action some people might not approve of if they knew I wrote it.
Hey, listen, sex sells, Connie. I got to tell you.
I know. I've been reading all these, and I don't think there's a book without sex in it.
Right. You got to have sex to have children, and without children, there's no people. So, that's why we all want to do it. We can't help it. Well, your book's more than about sex, right?
It's about a brother and a sister that are having a heck of a time at home. They're poor, and their father's an alcoholic. Their life isn't easy with them, so they decide to leave home and come and get a job. They got jobs, but they can't find a place to live, so they're living in their car in the back of a guy's filling station, and they get caught with their parked there. And then while the guy is bawling them out, a truck driver drives in and scares the heck out of them. And it winds out that her and the truck driver, at the end, they're going to be getting married. They got friendly, and the father dies, and they go to the funeral, and there's some old bitty ladies there wondering why this woman has got such a pretty coat on and dressed real nice, and then David comes in. They don't have time to introduce him, but he goes and hugs the mother and the daughter's boyfriend, but they're thinking it's her boyfriend. And they're sitting there discussing it, and the son is behind them listening, laughing at him because he knows that's not what it is.
There's one in every town.
Yeah. And then the mother gets a job, and they make out real good. They have some nice clothes and furniture, stuff that they've never thought they'd have in a million years.
Does it work out for everybody in the end?
Yeah.
It does.
I worked in a factory, and I did for 3,000 times a day. I put a part on lawnmower motors. They did the same thing for 3,000 times a day, and all this you got so you could do it in your sleep. So instead of falling asleep, I would think up something. I got a lot of these stories in my head. I thought up these stories, and then we got laid off, and I thought, hey. I'm not going to sit here doing nothing. So I started writing this story. In fact, I wrote this, most of it, 50 years ago.
So you wrote it while you were just doing the same thing on a factory line day after day after day. I don't know how people do that.
You have to keep your mind busy because you'd fall asleep doing the same thing over and over and over. And then when we went on strike, then I thought, hey, I'm going to write this story down. So I started writing. The guy said, Most of it was written 50 years ago, but I couldn't find a publisher. And then I read where you have to, publisher won't publish a book unless you go through an agent. And I thought, well, how do you get an agent? So I shelved the book. Then I retired, and I started writing some more chapters. And I was still in the same pickle. I didn't know how to get a hold of a publisher or an agent. Well, then I'm sitting here watching television, and the Page Publishing advertising came on television. And I thought, what the heck? What have I got to lose? I'm going to call them and see what's going on. So I did, and they sent me the stuff. But I thought that all they were interested in was children's books or recipes or how-to books. So I didn't call them, but they called me. He said, hey, how come you didn't call me? And I said, I don't think you're interested in this kind of a book. And he said, well, what kind is it? And I said, well, it's a romance novel. And he said, those are the best kind. Those are good sellers. Well, then I finished it, and I wrote to him and said, the book's done now. What do I do? So he told me what I had to do, and I did it. And I said, but he had to promise me he would read it. I said, I don't want to sit here waiting. Is he reading it, or are they? What are they doing with it? He said, no, they will read it, and they will let me know one way or the other. And I thought, well, okay, that's good. So it was only about a week or 2 weeks that he called me. And I said, okay, what's the bad news? And he says, no, it's good news for you. They were going to publish it. I said, oh, well, wow. My first book. Great if it sells. And then so I'll see what happens.
Well, I'll tell you this, Connie. Your book has a much better chance of selling if you publish it and put it out there than it does sitting in your closet. All right? So there. And there's my music cue. It is time to take a quick break. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back with more of the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple, iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Welcome back to the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Rosa Glamoux is on the line. She wrote Destiny's Regret. How you doing, Rosa? Tell us about your book.
It's about a young woman that has relationships with these gentlemen that are friends with her. Some of them she pursues, some of them she sits back to see what's going on. Just relationships that she's, coming of age, early 20s. She's not sure, if it's passion, if it's just lust, if it's, a long-term love type of relationship. And she's just kind of sorting through it all with all these different guys that she has different types of relationships with. One of them is like a high school crush that she's always had. Another one, they're all kind of in the same group. But at the same time, there's a couple outsiders that have kind of guided her through making certain decisions. It's kind of intertwined in a sense, but it's still, I think a lot of people can relate to it. Women, and they're going through that time of their lives where they've encountered, men that they're not sure of. They hold back. They might not ask questions that they really want to know about certain things. And if those guys have kind of feelings for her as well, what she's trying to figure out is she's got all these guys with different elements. Maybe one is the bad boy, one is the joking guy, one is the one that's really, a down to earth, lovable guy. And she's trying to figure out which of them might actually she should maybe pursue and which ones she kind of hesitates to pursue, maybe thinking that they might be out of her league or, but at the same time, she gets sidetracked because something happens in her relationships with one of them. And so she's, skittish and she's like, I went down that road with him. I'm afraid to get hurt again. Just, I guess, a matter of choice. And then you don't know who to ask what anymore, who to believe anymore. So you just get scared off and don't ask anymore.
What do you want readers to come away with?
don't hold back. You know, if you do care about somebody, you should ask them, you know, come straight out and tell them how you feel, and don't worry about what other people have told you about the person. You know, trust your heart, follow your instincts, and maybe, you know, you might put your heart out on the line and get hurt in the end, but at least you don't regret it. You've given it a chance.
Why is that so hard for us to do? You know, like, just put it out there, follow your gut, follow your heart, and maybe you won't get the answer that you want, but at least you can say you put it out there.
Right. You gave it a shot. You don't go through life wondering what if.
So is this kind of like your search to figure out what kind of man you want to end up with?
Well, I mean, if you read the story, you could tell that she's obviously made a mistake, and it's going to be one that she's going to regret for the rest of her life. So, you know, moving on, is she ever going to find that true love again? You know, it's questionable. I guess that's going to have to happen in part 2.
Oh, is there another one?
Well, I thought about it. I mean, this book took me 15 years to write. So until I finally found a publisher and started really focusing on it, you know, I did it, you know, late night, you know, here, a chapter here, a paragraph here, there. It just took me a very long time to write. I never thought of myself as a writer. I never really pursued it. I just had a story to tell. So, you know, eventually I just all got down and I finished it. And then I got encouraged and found a publisher that thought it was a good enough story to publish, and I went with it.
Did you let other people read it? Is that how you got encouragement?
I had an old friend come across that I just decided, you know, let him read it and see what he thinks. He doesn't know any of these people. He's in no way, you know, attached to anyone and wouldn't read into it too much. And so he read it and he did like it. And he said, yeah, there were the 3 elements that I look for in a book. It made me laugh, it made me cry, and it gave me the chills. So he's like, I think it's definitely a good book. I think you should go ahead and feel comfortable submitting it. He gave me a couple pointers, you know, do a little character building on the main character. The ending could use a little bit more. So little things like that. So I spent a couple of days refining it, and I submitted it, and they liked it. So I was surprised. The Page was the first one I submitted it to, and they accepted it. And I said, you know, I had talked to other authors that I've come across, and, you know, they've told me, you know, what they went through with bigger publishing companies and others that were self-published titles. And it just seems so much work, and it seems like such a long progress that so many steps to get to that point. So when I found out Page can, you know, help me lead, you know, go through the editing process and get everything done, to me it seemed like, you know, as a mom, a working mother of 4 children, like I needed all the help I could get. It took me 15 years to write. I wasn't going to waste 2-3 years to find a publisher, you know, that would do it all for me. So
working mom, you have 4 kids. Did you find your true love?
Well, that's questionable, but I don't regret anything, you know, that I've done since. But yeah, there's always that person in the back of my mind. So I dedicated the book to John, and I made him a promise. Like I said, that's it. I'm going to give it 16 years, and I'm going to do it. So 16 has always been my lucky number. So, you know, it came close to that time. And I was like, you know what, I got stuck. I kind of got writer's block for a while. It came to the chapter where it was like the climax of the book, and I found it hard to write. So it took a weekend. You know, I had my mom watch the kids, and I kind of cleared my mind, you know, went to a quiet place, and I just, you know, sat down and really concentrated on the last 3 chapters of the book, or 4 chapters. And I just, you know, his birthday's coming up. I need to have it done. So I banged out, you know, the 3 chapters, and then I spent, you know, a few more months, you know, editing it myself, you know, and then eventually, like I said, I came in contact with this one old friend, and he said, yeah, just do it, you know, don't wait anymore. So I did. So
you dedicated it to John, and John's birthday was coming up?
Yeah, well, it was the anniversary of his birthday and then also the anniversary of his death the month after.
I'm so sorry. You overcame a lot of obstacles to get this thing done, Rosa. It must feel good, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we might see another book.
I hope so.
All right, Rosa, hang in there. You gave us a lot to think about on that one. Good message. Say what you feel. Do not hold back. All right, last up, we have Charlie Davis on the line. He's a former cop, and this title's a little scary. Son of a gun, Daddy Must Die.
Yeah, no. Son of a gun, Daddy Must Die, just an attraction as far as the cover concerned, because you can't always judge a book by looking at the cover. That's an old song. But the story is about rape, an acute sexual assault that goes on for 25 years, because when it happened back in 1985, the guys weren't really brought to justice because that was before DNA evidence was discovered, as it is now. So it's a story about 5 guys that raped this young lady back in 1985, just before her college graduation. It went for over 20 years, and her father was a detective in Belleville, New Jersey. And after DNA came around, they found out that they could put the guys at the scene of the sexual assault. So that's what the story is about. It spans over years, over 25 years. And the old man is 80 years old. He catches the guys and he does a number on them just before they get ready to go to court again. And the number has to do with, taking the manhood away from them. It's about sexual revenge, actually. The grandfather, he doesn't let him get away with it the second time. So it's a story. It's about 330 pages. It's a whole novel. It wasn't anyone that I know that personally that happened to him. I'm just out there on the streets. I'm a cop, so it's a story that I put together from scratch, and started to writing it like I've done I'm a novelist. I've written over 11 novels already. I got 4 published already.
You have 4 books published?
Yeah. We got actually Page has 3 of my books right now. Page Publishing. They're going to be 4 now because they're working on the 4th story right now, which is Chocolate in the Milk. It's called The Slave Lover Chocolate in the Milk. So they're pretty busy with my stuff over there at Page in New York.
Well, good for you.
Well, I've been writing for a while. As a cop, you got to know how to write scenarios. You got to know how to write different reports and stuff like that. And I'm a theologian. I went to Bible college for like almost 6 years. I learned how to write there. So writing is just my passion. That's what I do. I write stories. I'm a novelist, so I know how to make up a lot of lies. That's what it's about. But Son of a Gun it touches the lives of parents and children, because it's about a young man that he's a product of the rape, and after 25 years he grows into be a very extraordinary person. So Son of a Gun is really one of my best stories that I've written so far. There's no truth in the story as far as someone that I know. It's just that I can gather all the cases that I've been around for my years as a police officer, and you get a chance to gather these things together and just imagine what it'd be like. The story is a story of rape and revenge, and after 25 years, this guy, he just didn't let it go. At 80 years old, he had to retire, and this thing had been on his heart for all of these years. He had a chance to get even, and that's what he did. He caught these guys, the 3 guys that were still alive. He removed their manhood, and 6 months later, when the date came around for them to go to court, they were sitting in court for a rape trial with no manhood.
Sounds intense.
Page working on 4 books. I have novels here on my desk that I haven't even had published yet, because that's what I do. And yes, ma'am. Have you written anything so far?
Have I written anything? I've written short stories.
Have you?
But I've never had any.
Short stories can be very romantic sometimes.
Yeah, they can be. But I'm very busy interviewing authors.
Oh, really? When you read the about the book, the inscription on the back of the book, it tells you pretty much about what could be in the story. But the title of Son of a Gun, Daddy Must Die, the title is derived from the girl in the story that got raped. She really knew how to use a gun. Using a gun was her thing. But the child that she gave birth to, Son of a Gun, it actually gives a second name to the child, or the title of the child she gave birth to out of the rape. And that's why they called him the son of the gun, because she was a girl and you had to use a gun. And Daddy must die is not literally that he dies, but he dies the manhood kind of way. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
That's the way he died.
Yeah.
That's the way he died. So the title of the book is just an attraction. But once you get into it, I'm pretty sure it would attract your full attention. No doubt about it.
Charlie, you sure got my attention, I'll tell you that. And we are out of time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I hope you've been inspired to get to work. Who knows? You could be the next guest on the Page Publishing Book Club. See you next week, same time, same place, 710 WOR. I'm your host, Alice Stockton.